Hi, this is Elwyn Robinson, author, results coach trainer, and founder of ING Academy. And thank you so much for joining us for video number 3. First of all, let me just congratulate and thank you for the involvement and engagement with the previous 2 videos. Just a quick recap. In video 1, you learn exactly why stress and overwhelm are such key issues with energy and how you can overcome them immediately. And hopefully you tried the practices and got the results during the video as advised. You also learn about the 3 different types of energy and why cultivating all 3 is crucially important. Then in video 2, you learn the most common reasons why most people get depleted in energy, or in fact are depleted in energy all their lives. And you also learn the complete keys to living a sustainably high energy lifestyle, which is the 12 laws of energy. And I went through all of those with you so you knew exactly what they are, why they're important, and how to actually do them and take action on them. And I really appreciate all the feedback I've had so far. I've had amazing responses. We've had some amazing people joining in with the exercises. In video 1, I asked you to describe what a high energy lifestyle meant to you. What is it to you to have high energy? And I've learned so much from your responses. Thank you so much. And I'm so inspired by them. They're incredible. There are lots of things I hadn't even considered, and I've been doing this for years. In video number 2, I asked you why high energy is so important for you. And again, I really appreciate the feedback on that. And of course, there are no correct answers for all of these, except for answers that aren't true for you. You know, whatever reason is true for you, why you do what is necessary to get high energy, to create the ideal life for yourself, to live up to your full potential, whatever drives you to do that is the right thing. So thank you so much for sharing and publicly declaring those things, because it makes such a difference to do so. As soon as you do that, you tell a deep part of yourself, I commit to this now. This is important to me. This is something I'm going to make happen. Because when you make high energy happen, everything becomes possible. That's my experience, and that's the experience of the hundreds and thousands of people that I've helped. Now, I'm actually going to ask a few of those to share their experiences with you over the next week or so. So I'm going to be interviewing some people. So rather than me telling their story, I'm going to have them tell their story of you. So make sure to look out for that in your email inbox. Get some stories that you may be able to relate to, that you may be able to identify with and learn something from. So let me ask you again right now, what would be possible for you if you had extraordinary levels of high energy right now? What would be possible if you had extraordinary levels of everyday energy? What if you woke up feeling light, feeling buoyant, feeling radiant, feeling so full of vitality, full of life energy? What would happen if you woke up every morning feeling fully alive and felt fully alive all day? What difference would that make to your life? What would happen if you had such high levels of adaptive reserve energy that stress and overwhelm and anxiety were just things of the past? Because you had such high levels of reserves and such a high capacity to adapt that you knew that anything that life throws at you or any challenges that you take on, you're going to more than be able to adapt to them. You're going to be able to thrive despite them. You're going to be able to overcome those challenges with ease and joy and grace. What would that feel like? What would it feel like to have the confidence to know that you could deal with anything? How would it feel? How would it feel to know that you could stay calm and poised and relaxed and centered no matter what happens? How would that feel? And how would it feel to have high levels of harmonic energy? To know that every single part of you is in alignment with every other part. That rather than being dragged here and there by different parts of you, that every part is on purpose. What kind of inner peace would that create within yourself? What kind of harmony would you experience? What degree of connection would you feel with the world? How would people treat you if you were that person? Would they treat you with great respect? Would they treat you with great honor? Would they treat you as if you really had authority, as if you had wisdom? Not authority through force, but authority through real life experience, through being a person who's really got life handled. How would that feel? Well, that last question, what would it be like to have more harmonic energy, is actually we're going to address in the training today. Because what I find is most people, once they've dealt with their stress and their anxiety and they've got it down to a reasonable level so they're not overwhelmed and so they can actually focus on what's truly important, Then I give them the steps that are required, right? And they know what to do. They have clarity. They can see it. It all makes sense. Okay, I just need to follow along step by step and I'll get the result. I'll get that consistently high energy, low stress life. Awesome. Well, what's the next challenge? The next challenge is getting yourself to do it, right? And this is where a whole can of worms, or Pandora's box, if you like, opens up. Because when you're not concentrating on this, when you're not focused on self-improvement, when you're just kind of on autopilot, it's very easy to kind of glide by and think everything's okay. And it's only really when you challenge yourself to step up and reach the next level that you get this resistance really bubbling up to the surface and you can't avoid it anymore. That it almost seems like there's a part of you that doesn't want you to progress, doesn't want you to grow, that doesn't want you to reach the next level. In fact, a lot of the time, depending where you're at, it may even feel like there's some part of you that is sabotaging, even just getting by or doing the basic things, right? How many times, for instance, have you decided of an evening after watching maybe a training video like this, that it would be an awesome idea to wake up early and do some exercise, right? Or that it would be great the next morning when you wake up to set your goals, or to do a meditation, or focus what you're really grateful on, or do a breathing exercises, right? How many times has that happened to you? I bet that's happened before, right? And then how many times when you made that decision, like, yes, that would be a great thing to do the next morning, do you actually wake up and then part of you is like, actually, no, I'm not going to do that, right? Or maybe not in the morning. What about after work? You know, how many times have you said, okay, after work, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go straight home to my wife or husband and kids and have some real meaningful connection with them, right? Or maybe straight after work, I'm going to go to the gym and do some exercise, right? And then in reality, you end up going to a bar and having a few drinks, right? Or you end up spending the time watching TV or on the internet, looking at Facebook and silly YouTube videos and stuff like that, right? How many times has that happened to you? Well, during those times, have you ever felt like, maybe like there's two parts of me? There's one part that really wants the best for me, right? But there's another part that just kind of easily gets distracted or easily gets pulled into momentary desires, right? I know I've had that feeling a lot. I've had that feeling all the time. In fact, maybe it's more serious, you know? Maybe you've had times where like you're a shopaholic, right? And you go and you spend a load of money and you put it all on the credit cards, and then at the end of the month you're like, oh, what did I do? I knew I couldn't afford it. Why did I buy those shoes? Or why did I buy those whatever, right? I knew I couldn't afford it. It was almost like some other mind inside you took over, right? What's going on there? Why do we have this happen, right? Same with other addictions, addiction to substances. Maybe you've been trying to lose weight and you know it's not a good idea to overeat or to eat a large amount of junk food or cake or burgers or fries or whatever it might be for you, right? You know it's not a good idea and you just find yourself doing it anyway. What's going on? Why does this happen? Well, this is an issue that's really important to me and really moves me on a heart level, to be frank with you, because throughout my childhood, my mother was very ill and she actually got cancer several times, and each time she managed to get better as a result of partly with surgical intervention, but partly also by changing her diet, her nutrition, by doing cleansing, by really using her mind correctly. She would do like hypnosis tapes and positive affirmations and visualizations and stuff like that, and she would really focus on her own well-being and she would get better. And then as soon as she got better, she would drop all that and start eating large amounts of junk food and just sitting in front of the TV watching soap operas all day. And I was like, what's going on? It was like at one time she would, do what was necessary in order to have like that high quality life, but then she would kind of crash and go back into escapism and into a kind of self-sabotage, self-destructive cycle. And in fact, the last time that she got cancer, back around 8 years ago now, she knew again that what she was going to need to do is step it up and live her lifestyle at a higher level, and she just couldn't do it. She had this belief that if only she ate well and if she did things right, she would get better, but she would just eat these foods that are bad for her anyway. And I said, what are you doing? You know, you're the one, I wasn't even into health at the time. I'm like, you're the one telling me this food's really bad for you. Why are you eating it, you know? And it always made me want to understand, what is it in us that knows what the right thing to do is, but doesn't actually do it a lot of the time? Now, of course, this particular tendency to, on one hand, know what's best, and on the other hand, do something quite different was certainly not unique to my mother. It was something that really pained me to see in myself as well, of course, a lot. I knew that it wasn't serving me to smoke, which I used to do. I used to smoke 20 to 40 a day. I knew it wasn't serving me to drink vast amounts of coffee, to only ever eat pizza. I knew that these things weren't serving me. Even though I didn't really know that much about it at the time. But I knew it wasn't good for me, right? Everyone knows that's not good for you. And yet I did it anyway, and I couldn't stop myself from doing it. And so it became so important to me to help myself and to help the people I care about to understand, what is it within us that does this? Now, what's interesting about this is something that philosophers, religious people, psychologists have been pontificating and creating theories about since time immemorial, since the beginning of civilization. But what's recently become possible is to actually look inside our brain and see what's actually going on, so we can get rid of all the theorizing about self-destructiveness and ego and id and shadow self and blah, 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 and look at what's actually happening here. And it turns out what's actually happening is really very simple. You see, we get this idea about ourselves from maybe spiritual or religious kind of theories that we are complete and perfect as we are. Now, in fact, from one certain perspective, that is absolutely correct. And it's a great way to see yourself, and it's a great way to see other people. However, what we aren't in terms of being an organism is finished. So what I mean about that is that the way our brains are structured is as if we have this reptilian brain at the back that we share with all other mammals and all other reptiles. And then we have this mammalian brain near the middle, which we share with all other mammals. And then we have this very large, compared to all other animals, prefrontal cortex, which is unique pretty much to human beings, okay? Now, out of those three, I like to divide them into just two brains, okay? So you have your front brain, you have your human brain, and that's the one that's really you, okay? And then you have your chimp brain, which is the rest of your brain, right? Which is your animal brain. Now, the interesting thing is that all of the ideas that we have about this would be the best thing to do. Truth, justice, spirituality, compassion, enlightenment, caring, making the world a better place, living up to our full potential, creating an ideal life. All of these kind of concepts exist just in the prefrontal cortex, which is fantastic. However, because this is the newest, youngest part of the brain, although it's most true to say this is ourself, this is myself, this is yourself, this is what makes you uniquely human, this is what separates you from maybe every other creature, which is the mammal on the earth, it's also true to say that this part of us is the weakest part of us, right? And the chimp part of us, the animal part of us, the more middle and high part of the brain has been around a lot longer and is in fact a lot stronger. So it's really true to say that we don't just have one mind, we actually have two minds. We have the human mind, which is really you, and then we have the chimp mind, which is also really you. Now, the interesting thing is, the human mind is smarter, and the human mind is capable of a lot more. The human mind will get you to reach the stars, but the chimp mind is stronger. What does it mean to say that your chimp mind is stronger? Well, what it means is there are a lot more connections, command type connections between your chimp brain and your human brain than there are naturally between your human brain and your chimp brain. So a lot of the time we just do what we feel like basically, and then we justify it, we rationalize it, we make up reasons for it afterwards, right? Now, a lot of the time the chimp brain and the human brain, their goals, their drives, their needs are not really in alignment, right? First of all, let's look at your human mind. What your human mind wants is what serves the world and what is rational, okay? So what does rational mean? Rational isn't quite the same as logical, because logic can really be used to justify anything, and in fact, usually is. So rational is what is in my interests, what is in your interests, and what is in the world's best interests, right? And from a truly rational perspective, we can see that there is no conflict there, right? Even though it may seem to serve me to pollute the earth, which is not in the earth's interest, Ultimately, it's in my best interest not to live in a polluted earth, right? Even though it may seem in my best interest to hurt or cheat someone else because I get something straight away, ultimately it's not in my best interest to live in a world where people feel hurt and cheated, right? So the reality is always that whatever is good for me is good for you, is good for us, and is good for the world. And that's what the rational part of us can clearly see. So the question the rational mind is asking, is it true? Is it right? Is it just? Is it beautiful? Does it have compassion? Does it have caring? And is it for the best overall, right? Long term. Now, the chimp mind isn't really thinking that way. The chimp mind is just, can I satisfy my needs now? Right? And that's pretty much it. Now, next, soon we're going to go over what those chimp needs are. I've identified 7 chimp needs. Now, the way I've framed this so far, you may be forgiven for thinking, as most people do, that somehow the human mind has to stop the chimp mind. Like the chimp mind is bad and the human mind is good. But the challenge with that, and that's what most of us who are into personal development, spirituality, and that kind of thing do, right? We try and repress and dominate and subjugate the animal part of ourselves, the instinctual feeling part of ourselves, but to our severe detriment, right? For many reasons. First of all, that's not very harmonious, is it? To try and repress and control and force one part of you to do something. Second of all, it's not going to work, right? Because that instinctual, animal, feeling, emotional part of you is stronger. So inevitably, it's always going to win. This is why if you try and achieve something with willpower, most of the time, long term, it just doesn't work. Because while your prefrontal cortex, your human mind can sometimes temporarily force your instinctual self in a certain direction, like eating less, exercising more, spending less money, or whatever, eventually it doesn't work and you always get that rebound effect. So we need to learn a new strategy. And in fact, that's exactly what you're going to learn in this video. A new strategy for living with yourself, for dealing with yourself, to manage yourself. And of course, the reason I'm teaching it to you here, to manage yourself, to get yourself to do those things which are in your best interest so that you have high amounts of energy so you can create that ideal life and live up to your full potential. Because in truth, that is good for me, that's good for you, that's good for the people around us, and that's good for the world. When you are living up to your full potential, when you are creating the life of your dreams, that serves everyone and that serves everything. Now, before I go ahead and give you the solution to all this, let me give you 3 examples of where this is such a challenge. Because the truth is that the way we just are born is we're not hardwired for success in this world, okay? This world as it is right now is kind of built to be successful for people where the human mind is directing their lives. And unfortunately for most of us, and certainly me for most of my life, and still to a greater degree ultimately than I would like to achieve, that's not the case. Let me give you an example. You see, the chimp brain, the chimp mind is built for instant gratification, right? So for instance, throughout most of our evolution, and in fact still for most animals, most mammals to this day, food was scarce, right? So the mind is always focused on food. And if food was available, we better damn well eat it because who knows when it's going to come around again, right? So that's the way that the chimp mind is wired, for instant gratification for food. Now, that's not to say that your chimp mind is wrong for being that way. That's what's led to you surviving and thriving to this day, right? So it's not as if we have to make our chimp self wrong for that. It's just our now obsolete, out of date wiring to say that food is our number one priority and that if we see it, we must eat it, right? Now, I'm sure you don't just eat whatever you find whenever you find it, but you may have more of a tendency for that than you would like, right? You may have that instant gratification thing of like, oh, if it's there, then I have to eat it. If someone presents it to me in a plate, well, I've got to finish it. It'd be rude not to, right? Forget the diet. Or, well, if I'm hungry, I've got to eat, right? It'd be crazy not to eat if I'm hungry. But the challenge then, of course, is that we carry on gaining the weight, or our cells carry on becoming more toxic, our digestive system carries on becoming more overburdened, and we develop often major health challenges, and certainly our energy is very low, right? So that's an example where that chimp instant gratification has served us throughout evolution, but it doesn't serve us anymore. Another example would be with money, spending money, right? The chimp is wired for instant gratification with that as well. If it sees that it can meet one of its needs, like its need for comfort with food, or its need for status with shiny toys and shiny objects, nice clothes or whatever, right? Then we'll just buy it. We'll just put it on the credit card, right? Even if we can't afford it. That's that instant gratification thing. And again, statistics teach us that this is something which is a real issue for the majority of the human race. In fact, I saw a recent statistic for in the USA, 97% of people by the time they reach retirement age are not able to look after themselves financially. They don't have significant savings. Now, that's a real shame. You may say it's because people aren't paid enough, and certainly that could be a factor in it. But there are some people who are not paid particularly well at all, but who just save their money conservatively and consistently, who have very, very, very abundant retirement funds. So it's not to say it's not possible, even if you're earning a fairly low wage. It's just that most of us don't do it because we just spend money when we feel like it. And I remember I was absolutely this way throughout most of my life. As soon as I had any money, I would just spend it immediately. It almost seemed irresponsible not to. But that's the chimp mind taking over and just, instant gratification, right? Last example would be that the chimp mind is really wired to look for threat, right? And again, this is not wrong. This is how we have survived as a race, right? This is how we survived as a species, is to focus on threat as a priority. But the challenge with that now is that most media, most marketers are aware that our chimp is programmed to look at threat as a priority. And so, news networks churn out 24/7 threat. Here's threat, more threat. Newspapers always this major problem, this massive threat, this major drama, because they know that we can't help but look at that. But the truth is now, even though that gives us an instant gratification, a little thrill of feeling, a little bit excited, a little bit like we know what's going on, we're informed of any potential dangers, right? The truth is that just stresses us out, and that reduces our quality of life. It drains us and depletes us of energy, and it actually makes us less likely to survive, ironically. People who are very informed and spend hours and hours and hours a day stressing out about stuff have less of a quality of life and less of a chance of surviving and thriving than those people who pay minimal attention to the constant stories of so-called threat, most of which don't affect you on a day-to-day level in reality anyway. And even if they are very valid threats, what are we doing about those threats? What if you're like, but this is very important, Elwin. Okay, well, what are you doing about it? And the reality is, a lot of the time, not a lot, right? You feel kind of powerless to do anything about it. So you hear about this hideous, threatening thing, whether it's environmental or terrorists or whatever, but you can't do anything. So it's just creating stress inside you without any possibility of resolution. It's just playing on the chimp inside you's addiction to threat. So those are 3 examples of instant gratification where the chimp instincts, which were so beneficial to us throughout most of our evolution, don't serve us anymore in this new modern day life. Okay, so that's the challenge that we face in this new modern age. Now, what do we do about it? Okay, in this video, I'm going to teach you a 4-step process about exactly how to master your own inner chimp, rather than subjugate and control it, or on the other hand, rather than being dominated by it. There is a third option, and that's to gently master your own inner chimp so that the two of you, the human, and your chimp are in alignment, so that you're congruent, and so that you're both working together as a team to achieve that extraordinary quality of life and to be the best you can be. Exciting, right? Before we get into that, let's very quickly look at what not to do, okay? There's 2 very important things not to do. Number 1 is to beat your chimp up, right? To beat yourself up. And this is something that so many of us spend so much time doing, right? Talking badly about ourselves. I'm so stupid. I'm such an idiot. I'm such a loser. I keep self-sabotaging myself. I'm not good enough. I feel so guilty about that. All of that stuff is basically you, your human self, beating up your chimp, right? Like, I knew I shouldn't have eaten that cake. How stupid of me. I knew I shouldn't have said that. How stupid of me, right? Whatever it may be, doesn't serve you to beat yourself up. It doesn't serve your chimp. It doesn't serve your relationship with your inner chimp to keep beating it up every time it does something on instinct, right? This is a little bit like dealing with an animal, or dealing with an animal. So dealing with a pet. If every time that a pet does something wrong, you take it and you start shouting at it and beating it, all you're going to end up with is a very mean pet, right? Not necessarily any better behaved, or wherever it is, it's miserable and unhappy. You don't want that, right? And you don't want to create that within yourself. So stop beating yourself up. This is the first key thing. Nothing else I teach you will really be of value to you so long as you think it's okay still to beat yourself up. If you really do have an issue with this, if you have a kind of compulsion to beating yourself up, I want to give you a little thought exercise, okay? What if you have a child, right? Let's imagine that you have a child. If you don't have a child, if you don't have your own child, maybe you have a niece, a nephew, I'm sure there's some young person that you feel close to and that you feel protective of, right? Now imagine if one day you had to go to that child's school and you walked in to find the teacher beating the child, telling the child that it was useless, that it was no good. How would you feel, right? I'm sure you would be scared, I'm sure you'd be shocked, I'm sure you'd be outraged, but I'm sure more than anything else you would feel furious, right? You'd be like, how dare you? How dare you treat that child that way? And you would step in and you would do whatever you could to stop it. Well, I encourage you to have the same level of compassionate, protective instinct over yourself, over your inner chimp, right? Over your inner child, because there's a lot of a match between the two. Love yourself, have compassion and patience for yourself. Don't beat yourself up. And if part of you is in the habit of doing that, fiercely protect yourself from that. Stop that, absolutely not. No, do not talk that way, right? No beating yourself up anymore. I want you to promise me right now. Repeat your name, will no longer ever beat myself up in my own head, okay? Okay, so that's agreed. Now here's mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 is just giving in to the inner chimp, right? Giving in to every instinct, everything that comes along. Oh, I fancy eating, I'll just eat, even if it doesn't serve me. Oh, I fancy saying something, I'll just say it, even if it hurts someone or ends up hurting me. Oh, I feel like having a sexual relationship with this person, even though I'm married, I'll just do it, right? Or whatever it may be, right? This person's upset me and so I'm going to beat them up or I'm going to murder them. And I'm sure you've never gone that far as the last 2 examples, but what I want to show you is there isn't a huge world of difference, okay? The bottom line is that you're out of control. And again, if we use the pet or the child as the analogy, right? If you had a pet who was just defecating everywhere, no, you shouldn't keep kicking them, beating them, shouting them, but you also can't just let them do it, right? You can't just say, oh, forget it. Just go wherever you want. Just eat my meal off my plate. That's fine. That's not going to cut it either, right? There has to be a third way. And in fact, there is. And that third way is mastery, right? That's through a combination of marshalling the very best part of yourself and leading yourself, right? Leading your inner chimp, leading your inner child, showing it a greater vision of what is possible and steering it and guiding it. As you might do if you were, say, riding a horse, right? As you would do if you were training a dog, you would have compassion, have awareness for them, certainly not beat them up, certainly not punish them, but nonetheless give them direction and guidance about where they need to go for their own best interest. That's your job. That's your job as the rational human. That's who you are. And I'm going to give you a guide on that right now so that you're going to be better able to actually take action successfully with all the 12 laws of high energy to create that extraordinary quality of life. Now, step number 1. Step number 1 is to learn to recognize when the chimp mind is in control, okay? Recognize the chimp mind and recognize the human mind and know what's going on. So that's just simply a matter of awareness, right? Self-awareness inside yourself. Now, you may already be familiar with this concept, you may not be, but I would suggest to you, if you don't have the level of mastery over your own life and you don't have the level of results that you want in your own life yet, then you've got some work to do in this area, right? I know that we all do. And in fact, it's hardest to see it in ourselves. It's much, much easier to point the finger at other people and go, oh, they're acting a bit like a chimp. But it's hardest to see that it's true and going on within us. So I'm going to give you a guide to show you how the chimp brain works and then how the human brain works, so you can tell the difference and you know who's in control, okay? Very briefly. First of all, the way the chimp mind thinks. The chimp mind has a tendency just to jump to conclusions, right? Without any facts, without weighing the evidence, it just, yep. And it's doing it pretty much based on instinct or based on feelings, right? Yep, I know, that's the way it is, right? So if you have a tendency to do that, just jump to a conclusion. Sometimes, especially in the area of social interaction, social dynamics, the chimp actually knows better than the rational human, because they can pick up all those subtle clues of vocal tonality and body language. So sometimes certainly the chimp is accurate, but certainly in matters of spending money or knowing what to eat or matters like that require a little bit more balanced judgment, often it just jumps to a conclusion. Yep, I'm going to eat that. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm going to drink that. Yeah, I'm going to say that, without necessarily thinking it through at all. And often that doesn't serve us. So that's one of the things about the chimp mind. Whether for good or ill, it jumps to conclusions, right? Second thing about the chimp mind is that it's very concerned with being right. So once it's jumped to that conclusion, not really based on any evidence, it will then defend that conclusion to the death, right? Even when it becomes pretty obvious that it was in fact wrong. Whereas the human mind is more focused on what's true and is therefore just looking and learning and happy to accept if what it previously thought was true is in fact not true after all. You know, that human mind can accept that. The chimp mind hates that. So it holds on and it identifies with those beliefs, those thought patterns. Once it has it, it holds on to it, right? The next thing about the chimp mind is that it has a predilection for fear, right? It tends to focus on anything which is a threat, as we've mentioned before. So if you're focusing on threat, if you're focused on reasons to be worried, reasons to be anxious, reasons to be overwhelmed, problems, then that's a sure sign again that the chimp mind is the one running the show, rather than you, the human mind. As well as focusing on threat, the chimp mind also loves drama. It loves excitement, right? It loves drama, tragedy. So a classic chimp thing is to get into soap opera kind of mentality, melodrama. It makes a hugely big deal about things. So if you ever find yourself making a mountain out of a molehill, if you act like something is an incredibly big deal one day, and then the next day or the next week or even the next month, you can't even remember it, that was the chimp brain taking over. Oh my God, it's so terrible, it's the end of the world. Actually, it doesn't really matter. Oh my God, she said that, he said that. Oh, that's such a big deal. And then it turns out to be nothing, right? So if you find yourself making a very big deal about things rather than kind of being able to see from the outside, in context, big picture, doesn't matter so much, that's a chimp brain thing. And then lastly, the chimp brain is also always focused in black and white thinking rather than contextual thinking. So that means it sees things very simply. It's either good or bad. It's either yes or no. It's either right or wrong, right? There's no in between. So a lot of the time people come to me and say, hey, is this good for me? And I'll say, well, it depends. If this and this is true, then it's good for you. But if that and that is true, then it's not good for you. And they don't like that because if they're in chimp thinking, because that's contextual thinking, right? They just want to know, is it good or is it bad? Now, again, there can be some benefits to this, like there can be of all chimp thinking. We don't want to overcomplicate things unnecessarily either, but a tendency to oversimplify is the chimp mind. How about your human mind? How can you tell if that's the one actually running the show? Well, the human mind is focused first of all on truth, right? It just wants to know what's true. It's not necessarily focused on being right. It just wants to find out what the case actually is. It's focused on evidence. It's focused on facts. It's focused on finding out what's actually going on. So the scientific idea or the journalistic idea, for instance, of seeking after truth, the spiritual seeker after truth, any of these ideas are an example of the human mind's desire to know what is actually the case. The human mind is also very much looks at things in terms of context. So rather than looking for a black and white truth, like this is always the truth, this is never true, this is right, this is wrong, it sees that there are often layers of grey, right? There is contextual truth. It's not to say that there is no such thing as truth and everything is a matter of opinion. I'm not saying that for a second. There is such a thing as truth. There is such a thing as evidence. There is such a thing as facts. But it sees that truth is true in context, you know? So what's right for you might not be right for me. What's true for you might not be true for me. What's true in one circumstance is not necessarily true in another circumstance, right? And in fact, a lot of science, again, is working that out. You know, the laws that apply to space and time when gravity is present are very different when gravity is not present, right? Because they are completely different contexts. The human mind is also always looking at the big picture, right? So rather than getting caught up in momentary details, rather than making a mountain out of a molehill, rather than getting really overwhelmed by small things, it remembers, okay, so on my deathbed, is this really going to matter? You know, or in 20 years' time, I'm just going to be able to laugh at this. It's that kind of perspective, which is your human big picture perspective. The human mind also thinks strategically, right? So, for instance, rather than your day just being a reaction of the different demands that are placed on you, when the chimp mind is in control, that's the way your day will tend to go. If your human mind is in control, then it'll tend to say, okay, what are my top priorities I'm going to focus on and I'm going to achieve today? They don't have to be a huge, you know, being a CEO of a multinational corporation kind of things. They could just be simple, everyday things like feeding yourself and your family, looking after the household, whatever it might be. But whatever it is, it's about you think through what's really important for you and the people close to you, and you make that happen because you have a strategy. You have a big picture perspective, right? And then lastly, the human mind also thinks long term, whereas the chimp mind thinks in terms of instant gratification, right? How will it make me feel now? The human mind thinks, how will it make me feel later? Or how will it make me feel in 10 years, right? So let's give a simple practical example of that. So if you are tempted, let's just say even right now, with the idea of eating some kind of sugary snack, right? Your chimp mind is going, it'll taste good and I'll feel good, right? And that's true. That's the truth for your chimp brain. However, your human mind is thinking, yeah, but how am I going to feel in like 3 or 4 hours? Is my blood sugar going to have crashed? Yeah. And even more long term, it's going to think, and what am I going to look like in 10 years if every time I feel like having a sugary snack, I eat one, right? Probably not that great, right? I'm probably going to be overweight. My skin's not going to be great quality. I'm going to have aged prematurely, okay? So that's an example of where the chimp brain and the human brain think about it differently, right? So the human brain tends to think more long term. So what's the point of this? The point of this is simply that step one, to understand which brain is in charge, right? And you can't change something until you know how it is, right? There's no point trying to get somewhere unless you first know where you are. So you need to know where you are right now. And it's a great idea to check in with yourself throughout the day, maybe, for instance, while you're doing your present breath, and ask yourself, what's going on right now? Where am I at right now? What brain is in charge right now? What mind is in charge right now? Am I thinking very black and white, or am I thinking contextually? Am I just trying to defend my position, or am I open to finding out the truth? Am I looking at what's really going to serve me long term, or am I just getting momentary little hits of excitement from drama and threat and anxiety, right? What's in charge right now is a great question to ask yourself, and that's the thing to be aware of for step number one. So once you're aware of who's in charge and who's actually you, right, the human, step number two is to become aware of your chimp's needs, right? So rather than denying and repressing the animal, instinctual, emotional part of yourself, you need to become aware of it and honor its needs, okay? Just as an example, again, we talked about the pet. How are you ever going to train a dog to be well behaved and help you out, maybe with your sheep or playing with your kids or whatever it might be, if it's so hungry it can't even think straight, you know? Or how are you going to tell your dog off for defecating in your house when you don't open the door or take it out for a walk or give it a litter tray, you know? Then it's not the dog's fault, is it, right? So in the same way, I would be willing to bet that you are not looking after your own needs at nearly a high enough level because you would like to deny and repress and feel that you are above that part of yourself. But guess what? You're not. None of us are. And again, I say this not from a perspective of judgment, but from a perspective of deep compassion, having been there for a long time. Listen, if anyone repressed that part of them, it was me. I repressed it so badly that it kept sending signals to me, basically saying that it wanted to die, like that it hated life, that it hated everything and it hated everyone, and I still didn't listen. So I'm fully aware of what it's like to repress that part of yourself and just how much damage it does. And a lot of what I teach people is about how to look after themselves again, how to look after their own needs again. But of course, how are you going to look after your needs if you're not really aware of them? So I think it's really helpful to go through and understand those needs. We go through it in great detail in High Energy Academy, like the full course, but I'm going to give you like a synopsis right now of your 7 chimp needs. And I'm also going to include just a very brief outline in a printout, which you'll find available below, for you to understand your 7 chimp needs. And what I'd like you to do is every day ask yourself, how are you doing on a scale from 1 to 10 at meeting those needs, okay? And if there's even one of those 7 needs that you're meeting at a low level, let's say you just give yourself a 3 for that, then it's no wonder you can't get your chimp to cooperate when you tell it that you want to start going for a run, or that you want to start setting goals, or that you want to start eating better, or that you want to start creating your own business, or you want to start building a better relationship or a new relationship or whatever. Whatever it is, if you want to get your chimp's cooperation, you have to have your chimp on side first. You have to meet its basic needs. Now, you also have 7 human needs, which are very important. And whereas with your chimp needs, you need to meet them pretty much just to get by. In order to not feel miserable and depleted and anxious, you need to meet your chimp needs. But in order to reach your full potential, in order to be extraordinary, in order to be the best you that you can be, you need to meet your 7 human needs as well. Now, because it takes a while to go over them, I'm not going to do those in this video as well. I'm going to do them in the next training, which is going to be in a live webinar format. So again, if you're not already signed up, make sure that you're signed up to receive these trainings, because you don't want to miss out on that one. That's where I really show you how to take it to a phenomenally high level. But we have to deal with the foundation first. And the foundation is, again, the middle and hind parts of your brain, your chimp brain. We have to satisfy that first. So, in a nutshell, we could say that the drives of your chimp brain are survival and reproduction, right? That's the most simple way to put it. In fact, a lot of evolutionary psychiatrists and psychologists would say those are the only things that human beings are actually really focused on. And there are all kinds of things that we do that we think we're doing for all kinds of complicated reasons, but really it's just for survival and reproduction. Now, I don't take such a limited view of you and me as humankind. I think we have a greater part of us that, a soul, a spirit, a part of us that's aspirational, part of us that's more than just that. However, that does play more of a central role in our lives than we may imagine, okay? So, however, that's a little bit simplistic. So I'm going to break it down into 7 needs which make the whole thing very easy to understand and very easy to actually fulfill on a day-to-day level, to achieve that level of satisfaction and get your chimp on side, so that then you can achieve that extraordinary level of productivity, success, health, energy, happiness, connection, contribution, integrity, growth, and everything else that you want. Okay, so chimp need number 1 is the need for security, safety and security. And the key thing with all these needs is they're not necessarily based on objective reality, they're based on how you feel, or specifically how your chimp feels. So your inner chimp needs to feel safe and secure. And if it doesn't, then it will not cooperate. This is its most basic need. And a lot of this is about reassuring your chimp, soothing your chimp, looking after your chimp, not just with words, but doing what it takes to make your chimp feel strong, right? So maybe guide it away from looking at all the real life and or media things which make it feel threatened, and move it towards realizing how safe and secure it is. Maybe make it stronger. Maybe help it to be more aware. An oblivious chimp is not a very safe chimp, right? So the more that you are aware, present, as we've already talked about, of your environment, the more safe you actually are, because you're able to deal with everything, right? The more confident that you can feel. So really ask yourself, how safe and secure you are. Again, I haven't got time to go through everything about satisfying these needs, but just to at least be aware of it and rate yourself every day and ask yourself every day, what can I do to make myself feel more safe and secure? Now, a lot of the time when we are not aware of a need, it becomes completely dominant in our life and we aren't even aware of it, right? So when the chimp need for safety and security are repressed and not acknowledged, a lot of the time, this is where we find a person who's in a situation where they are, for want of a better word, control freaks, right? They feel like they have to control everything. They feel like they have to be really guarded. They feel like they can never let their guard down. They can never relax. They can never just let go because they have to control every single little thing because otherwise they feel anxious and overwhelmed, right? That's where that need for safety and security is not being met. So meet that need for safety and security. Do what it takes to soothe and calm your chimp. The exercise in video 1 being a great example of that, so that you can then let go of that need to control to some degree and connect more with the world around you, trust more, be more in the flow, be more present, have a higher quality of life. So if you don't have your chimp feel safe and secure, it's not going to cooperate with your plans, right? So that's number 1. Chimp need number 2 is the need for belonging. And I also call it the need for tribe, right? They need to feel as if you are part of a group of people who are like you and who are there for you, right? Who have your back. This is something that's so basic that when we don't have it, or when we just feel like we don't have it, it promotes just as much anxiety in us as if we literally feel as if a building is about to collapse on us, or as if a tiger is chasing us. It creates the same amount of fear. In fact, in your amygdala, the right side of your amygdala, I believe it's this way around, is dedicated to that fight or flight fear, that fear that relates to safety and security, like something might get me and kill me. But the left side is dedicated to your sense of belonging to tribe, your sense of belonging to a social group. And when you don't have that, you'll experience just as much fear or anxiety on the other side of the amygdala, which is a little nut-shaped thing in the center of your brain, and you'll feel just as bad. And that's because throughout most of your evolution, the truth was, if you weren't part of the tribe, you were cast out. And if you were cast out, you were dead. Right? So it was the same as being chased by a big animal. It meant death either way. Now, of course, in our modern day age, the reality is we can survive without a tribe, although not very well still, but it's possible. So we need to do what's necessary to feel like we're part of a tribe. Now, ironically, especially for those people who are into personal development and into success and into being the best they can be, this can be the hardest. Because a lot of the time, the tribe that you start with, maybe your family, your friends, your schoolmates, they might not be people who you really feel connected to on a deep spirit level, because you feel like maybe, right? You feel like you want to achieve something else, or you want to do something different with your life. So you might feel more like you don't belong and like you're isolated. And this isn't something to just ignore. This is something to address. It's vitally important to find a group of people, not necessarily getting rid of any other group. You can stay part of your, every other tribe if you'd like to, but to find a tribe that you really feel like you belong to, and that you really feel like gets you and appreciates you as you are. And that will give you a sense of confidence, a sense of social confidence, rather than just survival confidence, which is crucially important for the chimp to, again, be cooperative with you. Chimp need number 3 is the need for love and connection. Okay, so yes, I would say that this is a mammalian need. I would say there is a higher human need called compassion, and I'll cover that as I said in the webinar. But the basic need to bond, to connect with one special person, or at least one special person at a time, to feel that one-on-one connection with them is absolutely crucial. And who that is will depend on what time of your life you're in. Generally, as a child, that bond between mother and child, or parent and child, is the most crucial bond. And without it, it's been shown you have a failure to thrive syndrome. If there's not enough physical touching, there's not enough oxytocin being created in the body, then a lot of the time children actually just wither away and don't grow. So that's crucial to feel that love and connection. And again, love isn't just a word, it isn't someone saying I love you. It's time, it's looking at each other, it's touching each other, it's staring into each other's eyes, it's engaging with each other, doing things together, right? This is loving, bonding experiences, and this is chimp need number 3. You need that. As you leave childhood, it tends to become more your peer group, especially as a teenager, right? You find a boyfriend or a girlfriend that you're especially connected to, or maybe a group of friends. And then as you get older, it may be a wife or husband, maybe your own children, and then grandchildren as you get older still, right? So, and there may also be other people. But the important thing is that you need to feel those bonds with at least one person. And again, the average person in the modern world, according to research, has 0.7 best friends. Isn't that sad? So the average person doesn't even have one person who they really connect to, who they really feel gets them, who they really feel they can share with and connect with, right? So that's no good. For your chimp to be happy, you may just need one person. You almost certainly need more than that, but you need at least someone who you really love and who really loves you, and where you feel that. It's not something you know in your head because they say it or you say it. It's something that your chimp feels. So that's chimp need number 3. Chimp need number 4 is the need for territory, right? And territory comes in both time and space. So everyone needs, yes, even you, if you're a mother or a parent, some time to themselves, right? Some time that is their own. Everyone needs stuff that is their own, you know, contrary to maybe communist kind of mentality of everything belongs to everyone. That's not how your chimp feels about things. Your chimp needs some stuff that's mine, right? And similarly for territory. It may be that you need a whole house. It may be you just need a room. It may be you just need a corner of a room or a garage or something, right? Even if you share, men tend to want more territory just to themselves sometimes. Women are quite happy to share that territory, but they still, either way, you want to feel like it's yours, like it's your own, right? Your territory. Some people need a lot more territory. Some people need multiple companies. Some people have to conquer whole countries, right? People's idea of territory varies a lot, but you need your feeling like you have something that's yours, your possessions, your space, and your time. And if you feel like you don't have that, your human might say, oh, well, that's just the way it is. But your chimp gets antsy, doesn't like it, right? It likes to have things that belong to it. It likes to have its own time and its own space. So to keep your chimp happy, to keep your chimp on side, you have to create that for yourself, right? You have to be very clear about that. And normally the challenge of that comes down to assertiveness and boundaries, right? Be willing to say, yes, this is mine. I claim this time. I claim this place. And being willing to say no, like, no, I'm busy right now. Or, no, I need this place to myself right now. Or, no, you can't, to a neighbor, you can't let your tree obscure my garden, or whatever it is, right? It's that ability to say no that makes you feel firm in your own territory. If you don't have that, a lot of the time, it leads to all kinds of problems. Again, people who struggle with this tend to have issues of anger and frustration, and maybe sometimes feelings of guilt as well. And that's really because they haven't clarified their territory. So it's very important. Chimp need number 5 is comfort, okay? And for me, comfort is quite a broad definition. So for me, comfort is anything where you feel a sense of relief, okay? So I would include, if you're hungry, you're not comfortable, right? If you're tired, you're not comfortable. If you're thirsty, you're not comfortable. If your body is in an awkward position or if it's in pain, you're not comfortable. If you need to excrete, if you need to go to the toilet and you don't, you're not comfortable, right? So these are all the comforts which are basically required for your chimp to be happy. Now again, this may sound so obvious it's ridiculous, but how many times have you not gone to the toilet because it wasn't convenient because your human brain was busy, and meanwhile your chimp was getting all antsy, right? How many times have you skipped breakfast because you had to rush to work, and then your chimp brain wasn't comfortable because it didn't have the blood sugar that it needed, right? How many times have you been dehydrated, clue, way too often, way too much, right? And not drunk any water because it wasn't convenient, because you didn't want to have to go to the toilet later. Probably a lot, right? So these are all the chimp comforts which aren't being met. How many times have you needed sleep, but you stayed up too late because you were excited or because you were stressed about something, or you got up too early in terms of you didn't get enough sleep because you had to do something, right? Again, the chimp comforts aren't being met. So a lot of these chimp comforts we go through in detail in High Energy Academy. Of course, you have already had them covered to some degree with the 12 laws, right? A lot of those are the chimp comforts that you just need to meet, like the ones I've mentioned: the need to sleep, the need to eat, the need to defecate. They're very simple, and yet a lot of the time we don't meet them, which is why I'm asking you to make this something that you're really aware of. So every day with each of these, again, say, how much do I feel I'm meeting this chimp need? You know, how much am I meeting all my comforts? Now, what's the challenge? When these basic comforts aren't met, that's where a lot of the time the chimp becomes obsessed with comfort, and this is where a person is really struggles to get outside their comfort zone, right? If you're the kind of person who needs all of your comforts just so, and you like to stay very comfortable in your thinking, you like to stay very comfortable in terms of not doing anything challenging, then that's almost certainly because your basic comforts aren't being met, and so you can't go ahead and advance and do the major challenges, understandably, because you haven't got your chimp on side. However, if you have your chimp, oh, by the way, the need to move is a comfort, right? I would describe stagnation of the physical body as the same as needing to go to the toilet or being hungry. It's something that we feel inside us, but sometimes we don't address, okay? So with all of these things, we need to address it. We need to be aware of it. And I would, as I say, I'd train you on those a little bit more, but it's covered in detail in High Energy Academy. Chimp need number 6 is the need for status or knowing your role. Okay. Now, what is status? Status is basically where you know where you are in relation to other members of your tribe and even members of other tribes, right? Am I above them? Am I below them? Now, again, the human mind hates this kind of thinking, right? The human mind would like to say everyone is equal, and that's absolutely true on that level. However, on the chimp level, the reality is this. There's a load of people out there. You're not going to be able to pay attention to everyone, and you're not going to be able to follow the advice of everyone, right? So you have to decide, who do I listen to? Who do I trust? And you make those decisions usually based, your chimp at least makes that decision usually based on status, okay? What your status is. If your status is higher, then I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to follow you. If your status is lower, then if anything, I'm going to give you direction, right? If your status is higher, I'm going to tend to listen to you. If your status is lower, I'm going to tend to expect you to listen to me. That's the way the chimp works. Again, we may not like it, but that's the way that it works. So the key to this is sometimes people like to cheat with status, and this is, if a chimp can cheat, it will. So they like to get status by having status symbols, you know, like nice clothes, fancy car, beautiful body, those kind of things. But the truth is, status within your tribe, within your pack, really comes from knowing your role, you know, knowing your strengths, and knowing where you can add value to the other members of your tribe. And generally, the more value you can add, the higher your status gets. Not through political trickery and not through tricks like the way you're dressed or the way you look, but through an honest evaluation of your value. So what I teach people is, and this is a whole other course, but if you want to increase your feelings of status, you need to increase your ability to add real value to your tribe or tribes, which is giving people something that really serves them in a way that they are going to feel served and that they're going to feel appreciated, while of course at the same time doing what you're best at. And it's finding where those two meet, your strengths, other people's needs, that you get that place where you have a role within your tribe or tribes that gives you that high status. So that's chimp need number 6, and in a nutshell, how to meet it. And the last chimp need number 7, is a need for fun and novelty. Now, the need for fun and novelty is probably the last after all those. You need to meet all those first. But a chimp that has the other needs met is basically going to be thinking, I want to have some fun, right? I want to do something new. I want to do something cool. Now, this need is absolutely, like all the chimp needs, very valid and should be acknowledged and should be met. However, the challenge can be if we don't do this, if we don't allow for fun and novelty in our lives. Novelty just means newness, by the way, new experiences. If we don't allow for that in our lives, then what happens is we tend to get hooked into distraction instead of novelty, right? The little YouTube video, next little YouTube video, next Facebook page, the next link, channel hopping, right? All this gives us a lot of novelty, but it doesn't actually provide us with anything real. It doesn't fulfill our human needs. which again, I'll discuss more in the upcoming webinar. So we need to find ways to meet our need for fun or novelty that actually serve us. Similarly with fun, right? Fun is awesome, and it's basically what gives joy to life, what gives happiness to life. Fun is also play. Playing is very important for us. It's very important for the development of our brain and for our fulfillment. But again, there are many kinds of games. Some of them are destructive, some of them are neutral, some of them are destructive, like drinking games, maybe alcoholic drinking games. Some of them are neutral, like maybe playing computer games, not particularly damaging in most cases, but not particularly beneficial either. It's not like you end up with a much heightened quality of life as a result of playing a computer game, well, usually anyway. Or there are productive games, like what am I going to do to be even better than I ever have been at this particular skill, which leads you to be highly skilled and maybe highly valuable, right? Or there are productive games that allow you to really share with another group of people and have a team camaraderie with them. Those are just examples. So there are different types of games to play to have fun, and there are different types of novelty. There's novelty which challenges us and gets us to the next level, and there's knowledge which just distracts us and pulls us away from what's really important. So again, we need to learn how to meet that chimp need, and we have to acknowledge it and accept it and then be aware of it in order to meet it. Now, the exciting thing is you also have 7 human needs which correlate with those. And the more you develop the human need, the more you develop the chimp need, and it becomes a positive, constructive cycle. Whereas the more you repress and put down your chimp self and your chimp needs, the more it's a self-destructive cycle where the human need is met less and less and things get worse and worse. So I'm going to teach you all about that in the webinar. I'm also just going to mention at this point that what I do best, my own role in the tribe, which I do the best at, is helping people like you who care about themselves and the world and other people and want to be the best they can be and do their best to do that, right? To overcome those obstacles, overcome those blockages. I do that in the form of just sharing free training like this, which I'm totally happy to do. But if you would like my one-on-one personal guidance, where I talk you through exactly what to do step by step, where you have every week a new module on a new topic, so you're not kind of overwhelmed with everything all at once like I'm doing here, but you have exactly bite-sized chunks of what you need to know, and then the ability at the end of every week to speak with me, to be inspired by me, to be able to ask me any questions, to clarify anything, to even be able to be coached by me and go deep in terms of if you have any challenges or any blockages, as well as having all kinds of other additional trainings. That's all available to you in the High Energy Academy online course and coaching program, which is going to be available soon. So just keep your eye on your inbox for that. However, the free training is nowhere near over yet. As I said, in the next webinar, you're going to get access to where I'm going to go through the 7 human needs in detail, right? I'm going to show you exactly how to meet those. And those are going to be probably my most in-depth trainings of all, because to me, that's what's the most important. That's what makes me feel alive. That's what lights me up, to share that with you and to train you on that. But in the meantime, here's what I'm encouraging you to do, right? What I would love you to do, what I challenge you to do to get those results, to have this not just be, interesting. I don't want you to agree with this. I don't want you to disagree with this. I want you to put it into practice. I want you to try it. I want you at the end of every day to ask yourself, how have I done with meeting those 7 chimp needs? How safe and secure have I felt today? Oh, 5 out of 10. Oh, okay, that's not too great, yeah. And then you might notice there's 1 or 2. Oh, that's a low one. Ah, that's why I didn't have a very good day. Or you might notice that you're all like 7s or 8s. And you're like, that's why I had a great day. My chimp was on side, right? Now, that's kind of the reality for most of us who are into self-development. We have our good days and we have our bad days. But what would happen if you met those chimp needs at a high level consistently? Would you have a chimp that was on side? Would you have a chimp that was on your side? Would you have a chimp who was delighted to receive your guidance and just ready to be shown, to have you lead the way to get to the next level? In my experience, the answer to that is absolutely yes, and it is very exciting. Imagine having all that force, all that power and strength that right now resists you and tries to sabotage you and tries to pull you away from your purpose. Imagine having all that on side. Imagine having all that working for you. Imagine instead of burning up so much energy, creating so much mental tension, so much mental confusion with conflict, where different sides of you are pulled in different directions, imagine every part of you working in unity and in harmony towards you creating your ideal life, towards you being the best you that you can be. It may have sounded like a bold claim at the beginning, right? But I think if you've been following along with me, you can see by now that it's not a pipe dream. It really is possible. If you get this stuff handled, you will reduce and then ultimately dissolve this conflict inside you, and you will be on point. You will be on purpose, and nothing will be able to stop you. And let me tell you, this is exactly what I found. My research has indicated I've studied a lot of people who are very successful in numerous different ways, and I've had the pleasure and the privilege to be close to a lot of them. Some who are very successful in health, some who are very successful in relationships, some who are very successful in career and making money, and some who are successful in all three. And what they all have in common is that they have their animal, their chimp self on side, right? It's obvious. They don't deny and repress that part of themselves, and yet on the other hand, they don't allow that part of them to just run rampant. They have tamed and mastered that part of themselves, and they're clear on who they really are. They are the human. They are the one who cares. They're the ones who cares about their own benefit, everyone else's benefit, and the world's benefit. The rational part of ourselves, the one that's interested in truth, that's interested in compassion, that's interested in what's right, what's best, being the best we can be, contributing, having integrity, growing, developing, improving. Those kind of values, those are the values of the real you. I know that, and I want you to know that as a living, breathing reality. And this is the way through. This is the way to do it. So I highly encourage you to do that very simple exercise. At the end of the day, ask yourself, how am I doing with each of these chimp needs? And if you would like to share underneath which of your chimp needs you feel either is the strongest for you, or that you felt that you are the most surprised about, that you've become the most aware of, that you've had the biggest challenges with, that have served you the most, whatever you'd like to share about those chimp needs, I would love to hear it. And of course, if you have any other questions, if there's anything else that you would like to tell me, that you would like to share with me, if you just do it below, I'd really appreciate it. I'm going to reply to as much as I possibly can because I love to hear from you. And if you're just still watching this right now, one other thing to say to you, I so appreciate you. I just honor you and I acknowledge you, and I'm inspired by you. The fact that you care enough to watch this, the fact that you care enough to apply this and put it into action excites me. It gives me juice. It makes me feel charged. It makes me feel alive. It makes me feel happy to do what I do. So thank you for allowing me to share this training with you. Thank you for implementing it. Thank you for taking action. Thank you for making it make a huge difference in your life if that's what you choose to do, because I know it can. The question is just, will you do it? Will you take action? Will you do the simple steps that are required to achieve that transformation? And I'm thinking if you're still watching this video, you're a committed person and that you're going to do it. You're not going to beat yourself up anymore. You're not going to give in to the animal instinct part of yourself anymore. You're going to master it because that's who you are. Okay, thank you for watching, and I will see you soon for the live webinar. Make sure you check your inbox. Make sure you've added me as a contact so you get the notification about that, because I'm not going to barrage you about it. So please make sure I'm added as a contact. If possible, reply to my emails, because then that allows your email system to know that I'm your friend and that I'm not just, obviously sending you something you don't want to hear, to make sure that you get that opportunity to show up for that, because it's something that's really powerful, really transformative, and I want you to have that opportunity. So see you there.